Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Cultivate Your Brand series. My name's Taylor. And today I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I did not prepare like an official training for today because I really wanted to have more of a conversational tone to this training because there really are so many ways that this could go. So today we are covering and talking about how do you say no to clients? Why would you want to say no to clients? And like, how do you actually do it in a way that doesn't make you feel terrible and that doesn't leave them feeling, bad on the other side also? First, I'd be really interested to know, have any of you had to ever like say no to a client or you really wanted to say no to a client, but you didn't actually know how? And this can be an open conversation. You guys can unmute, you can just, talk to me about it. And like, let's really dive in to what that felt like. So Tara's not yet. Okay. What about you, Pam? Have you ever had someone you really wanted to say no to?
Not so much yet. Maybe one time somebody asked me for help that seemed more medical than I was comfortable with, and I just said, yeah, you need to seek some other help.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, cool. What about you, Katie? Do you ever had times where like people have asked you for your services and you just really need to say no, but it was like difficult?
Yeah, I did this week. Yeah, this week somebody asked me if I could do like a copywriting project for them, and I just knew that we wouldn't be a good fit the way that my life works and the way that I run my business. It just wouldn't work for me to work with them. And so like you asked me how it felt awful. It felt terrible, and I hated saying no because like I really wanted to say yes, but I knew that it wouldn't be a good fit.
Yeah, so saying no when you really want to say yes is it is super challenging, right? Because you're capable, you know that you have the skills, you could actually deliver on what they want, but there's a piece that's not working, right? Like yours is specifically this lifestyle piece, right? That doesn't work for my lifestyle and it's not going to work for like financially with what I need. And so how do you say no to those kinds of things? So let's talk about that. So I've had a lot of experience in my life saying yes to things I wish I said no to. And you guys have probably had this experience outside of your businesses. If you haven't had it inside of your business, is someone asks you to do something, someone asks you to volunteer, somebody asks you to do something for free, somebody asks you to work on a project or watch their kids or whatever that might look like in your life. And you really want to say no, like deep in your gut, you're like, I need to say no to this. It's not going to fit in with my time. It's not going to fit in with my mental health right now, or like whatever those reasons could be. But you just don't know how to tell those people no. And there's a lot of talk right now in the world about boundaries. And while there is a lot of talk about it, there are people who are doing it because they have a lack mentality. And they're like, well, if I don't say no, then I won't have enough of this and I won't have enough of that. If I don't say no to this, I'm not gonna have enough time to do this. And I'm not gonna have enough time to take care of myself and my family. And then there's people who are doing it because they want to be in charge of their life, right? And it's almost like this traumatic response to people making requests of them. And so they use saying no to feel powerful. And I want to invite you to consider that saying no can actually just be a way that you actually serve yourself and serve other people. Like it doesn't have to come from a place of not enough, and it doesn't have to come from a place of don't tell me what to do. And it can really be a healthy conversation that actually leads to you getting more business. When you run a business, you have a specific service that you offer. Now, if you are not clear on exactly what services you offer, you could be getting all kinds of random different requests depending on your industry, right? For me, doing marketing and branding, I get a lot of different kinds of requests that they're like, do you do social media copy? Do you do websites? Do you do logos? Do you do design for this? Can you do that? And because of the industry I'm in, because of what I do, I get a lot of different requests. So I actually have a lot of opportunities to say no. And sometimes it is something that I do, but it's something someone wants for a lot less money than I charge, right? And so that's also a circumstance that you could deal with in your business. If you're selling a product, you may not run into that nearly as much as if you're selling a service. Because when you're selling a product, obviously the prices are kind of set. This is what that product costs. But you've had friends and family, or you will have friends and family who could ask you for discounts on your time or your products. And how do you say no to them? You love them, right? You want to serve them, you want to give them, but you also want them to respect you as a business owner. And so there is a way for you to actually look at saying no as a way of actually serving your clients or your customers so that you can actually be the best business owner that you can. If I take on a project that is outside of my circle of brilliance or outside of my ability to fulfill, when I take that project on, number one, I'm eventually going to be overwhelmed, and I know it. I will be overwhelmed because I'm going to be stuck in having to figure out how to actually fulfill on something that I wasn't prepared to fulfill on. Now, as mentioned before, Pam mentioned this, right? Someone asked her for something that seemed a little bit more medical than what she does with helping people remove chemicals and things from their home and clean their home with things that are good for their bodies. For her, that was a very obvious no, right? It was very much outside of what she delivers on. But if it had been a little bit closer, right? Maybe it had overlapped. How could she actually take that opportunity as a way to serve her client versus, knowing that it really, really wasn't out, like in her brilliance zone? The way that you actually take this on as a way of serving your clients is, number one, you have to know that they have a specific result that they are looking for, and you have a specific thing that you deliver. If the result that they're looking for and the thing that you don't deliver, the thing that you deliver do not match, and that you have to consider the thing you're delivering includes how your business works, how much you charge for your services or your product, the amount of time it's going to take. If those things don't match, you should be saying no to something unless you feel really intuitively called to say yes. There will be times where you feel intuitively called to say yes, and there will be times where you want to say yes and you feel intuitively called to say no. I recently had a client that we were doing done for you social media work for this client. And I personally knew that the work we were doing for this client was not pushing her business forward. Not because the work we were delivering wasn't great quality. We were delivering really good quality work for her. We were delivering great graphics, great copywriting, great emails. We were doing this work for her, but there were things in her business that were not going to allow the things that we were doing to actually push her business forward. So we were in a new negotiation to have a new contract because we had switched how we were doing things, whereas it was going through another company before we were contracting for, and now it was going to be directly with us. Is both of us, both me and Katie, who works with me in the business, we knew that this project was a no. We could feel it in our bodies. We could feel like we felt the overwhelm of like having to continuously deliver on the thing that we were doing for her. And we knew it was a no, but we continued to negotiate with her to get to a yes. Even though neither of us wanted to be delivering on the thing that we were doing. But we were looking at this opportunity out of, number one, trying to help, and number two, scarcity. We were trying to be really logical about this project. If we get this amount of money in our business this month for doing this project, then we can do these things we actually want to do. And I've noticed this a lot with business owners. I experience it myself all the time, and I have to constantly check myself. Am I doing what's in alignment with me? Am I doing the things I actually want to be doing? Am I doing the things that pay me enough money to spend my time doing them? We were looking at it from this logical point of view of something we didn't want to be doing so that we could be doing what we wanted to do, instead of saying, okay, this isn't going to work for us, doing it for this amount of money and having to take this amount of time to do these projects, versus saying, we already can see that this isn't serving you, right? This is not the thing that you need. You need someone who's going to build your audience. You need someone who's going to be able to get people into your business and not just be marketing. Like, you need to be doing advertising, whereas we're doing like branding and marketing. And I don't need to go into the nuances of what that looks like in business right now. But if we had just come to her and said, hey, this isn't going to work for us, and we don't actually think that this project is what's right for you, it could have been an opportunity for us to say, but what would work for you? What do we actually provide that could actually serve you? Whereas we don't think these things are serving you. And we have a perspective that we think this and this, like we think that mapping out your funnels and having, landing pages and stuff for people to come to, blah, 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 like would actually serve your business versus just doing this social media content. And it could have been a renegotiatory conversation. But what ended up happening was we, in our hesitance, waited too long to say no to her because we were trying to say yes. And she actually ended up deciding that she no longer wanted to use our services because she could see what we could see, right? She could see that this wasn't the area of her business that she needed to invest in. But what happened is that opportunity to actually show her that we actually cared more about her and her business than we did about our own bottom line was a little bit missed because she said no first. If we had told her no first and said, hey, we don't think this is serving you, what does that do in her mind? Number one, it's going to create respect for us and our business because we actually have her. We actually have her in mind more than we do ourselves. Now, in this circumstance, that works. However, if she had wanted our services and she was like, no, I need your services. I need you to do it for this amount of money. I need you to do, exactly these things. And it wasn't in alignment for us, right? It wasn't something we wanted to do. It was something that we knew would take more of our energy and time than we had or wanted to spend on doing it. And we knew that the repetitive nature of the work wasn't going to work for us long term because it already had passed the threshold of how much repetitive work we could actually do, as we prefer project-based work. That conversation could have gone very differently, right? That is where a boundary holding conversation comes in, where you say, you know what, I'm sorry, like this is what we charge in our business. I charge $1,000 minimum, $75 an hour. I'm making up numbers, for this, whatever, like, actually those are my numbers. But if I were to make up numbers, for anything else, because a website project is going to be different than social media content, than whatever, and say like, these are actually, if I'm going to provide these services in order for it to be worth like my time and my effort, I have $1,000 minimum every month, $75 an hour after this many hours in a week, et cetera. And telling her that we can't provide, right? I can't provide that service for you consistently for that amount of money, because I know that after experiencing this, I know that after about a month or two, I'm going to start to struggle to actually deliver that for you, because I cannot provide, personally, I cannot provide repetitive weekly work for somebody reliably. And that is a function of my own neurodiversity and creativity, is that I need to be able to work inside of a project that is like, get this done in a short period of time, boom, and then it's done and it's finished. Everything that I do in my business, I've discovered needs to have a deadline, and it needs to have an end date. And it can't be weekly. It can't be like I need to write 3 emails every single week, because eventually it's going to be like, I write 3 emails, I write 3 emails, I write 3 emails. This week I wrote 6 emails because I didn't write last week's emails. So like it's going, and then eventually I'll be like, well, I wrote 2 and it's okay. And I just know that by the end, right, by the time we actually get to a place we're going to end that project, it will be because I'm no longer delivering. And for me, right, that's not enough for me, because I hold a strong value in actually serving my clients. And so when you are in business, you have to understand what boundaries you actually need to hold in place. And that's going to be boundaries around, number one, your time. Do you have work hours? And do you have time that you need to be spending doing something else, right? Like I have children, and I generally work from 9 or 10 to 3 or 4 every day, depending on the day. And those are my approximate work hours. Do I do work outside of those hours? Yeah, I can sometimes, depending on what my kids are doing. Can work, sometimes until 5-ish if I just stand at my kitchen counter and work, right? But most of the time, and my desire, right? If we go from what I do to what my desire actually is, my desire is to work, from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And that's it. 9 to 3, Monday through Friday, maybe something on Saturday in the morning, like 9 to 12. But my goal isn't to be working in my business from, 8 to 8 every single day, and then being so glad that it's Sunday, but having to like clean my entire house and do things that I don't want to do on that day. Since my goal is to work from 10 to 3 every day, and I want you to think about this in your own business, in your life. What are your goals? How much do you actually want to work? For me, it's more like the time frame than it really is like about the hours. Like I could work 10 hours a day if I wanted to. I'm one of those people that could just keep going and doing the things. But I do that because the other values I hold in my life, like spending quality time with my children. Like I don't want to be the stay-at-home mom that stands there and works on my business all day trying to get my children to do something else than, be with me. Because number one, that sucks for them and it sucks for me. So if there's something that I'm going to take on that I know like is going to take over my workload or is going to take more mental and emotional space away from my productivity, I have to say no to those things. And I have to know that saying no actually lets me be a better business owner. It lets me serve my clients better than I currently have. It lets me serve my family better, and it lets me have a better mental health. Because if I'm taking on things that are bad for my mental health, my business will suffer, my family will suffer, I will suffer. Literally everything in my life will like diminish in quality because I was unwilling to say no to something. And I have done this to myself. And I often forget the things that don't work for me if I go long enough without doing them. And so sometimes I will say yes to something that I should say no to because I simply forgot what it was like to perform that particular task. It was, I've done some administrative work in my career, and I'll look at the chat here. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Tara. I'm glad to be sharing with you guys because there's a lot that happens in my business every single day. So over the course of my career, like since I got out of college, I've worked in private equity, which was a very demanding, lots of hours kind of work. I was managing the operations and the people and like the marketing and literally almost like everything for 6 small businesses. Now, if you even have run one business, you know how complex running a single business is. Now, imagine like running 6 of them at the same time and having to manage all of that, right? So there was a lot of stuff I was doing that was administrative. And after about 3 months, my ability to fulfill on those administrative things started to diminish. And I was starting to struggle with actually keeping up with them. And there were starting to be things that I literally like, I could not emotionally take those things on and like actually complete them. And so my position there was struggling. The businesses were struggling too. So it was this really extremely high stress situation. And what ended up happening, and this is the first time that I really, really said no to something that took like my financial value away from me. These businesses were struggling. I was already getting only basically every other paycheck because these businesses were failing and there wasn't enough money in any of the businesses. And so these businesses were failing. I was getting like every other paycheck. So something that I expected to be making $3,500 a month at, I was making like $1,500 a month. And I was working like 40, 50, 60 hours a week doing this. And I was also in school and I had my family, right? And so what ended up happening was they asked me to reduce my hours. But in my mind, my responsibilities were not going to be reduced, right? I still, in order for these businesses to actually function, I still needed to perform all the same tasks I'd already been performing. And so they wanted me to reduce my hours because I told them, I'm in school full time this semester, like you knew I would be. And I'm still responsible for all of these things. And they wanted me to go down to like hourly or like part-time pay instead of my salary pay. But I was like, I'm already only making half of what you promised to pay me. So why on earth would I take less money for doing the same amount of things in less hours? And so I ended up getting fired because I told them I would not take less money for doing and performing the same amount of work in less hours. Now, since I was an employee, obviously they got the choice of saying, well, then you're not going to work here anymore. And them firing me, which the businesses failed within a few months anyway. So really, I was already on my way out. But them firing me was the best thing that happened to me because it was the first time I had ever been like, my time is worth this much money because I'm performing these tasks. And I started to actually see that the things I was doing was valuable outside of the amount of hours I was spending doing it. And so I got fired, and actually just started working for the owner's friend who was literally doing the exact same thing. And I started doing the exact same thing for this other company with somebody that could actually, pay me on a regular basis. And so I moved over to this new company and I noticed the exact same pattern again. And so what I'm pointing to here is I want you to start to notice in your mind, based on your past, things that you've experienced. And then as you're moving forward and running your business and building your business, I want you to notice the tasks and the things that you do, and the patterns and like how they actually work for you. Are there things that you know that you can't fulfill on, or like different business models, maybe like one-on-one work doesn't work for you, or maybe building something where you do group programs, or you go into somebody's house for 4 hours or 8 hours, or whatever your actual business looks like. There's so many different business models out there. I'm just pointing to like paying attention to the business models that may or may not work for you. And so I started to notice this same pattern. There were repetitive administrative things that I could focus on for a really short period of time in order to get them like 90% set up. And then that repetitive need to like nurture and complete those tasks was difficult and it was challenging. And I am good at using a calendar. I am good at using a task management system. I am great at making sure I know what I have going on in my business. My brain tends to see everything I have going on all the time, which can be a lot. And I noticed that I couldn't do the administrative work. Okay. But at the time, I still wasn't seeing this. Okay. I just knew I was overwhelmed and like I wanted to do things that were more creative and work with more people, because I was just doing a lot of stuff like that was by myself on a computer and remote. So like literally no humans. And so I stopped working there after I felt just like inspired to stop working there and move on to kind of trying to start my own business. I started my own business again, and I had already been doing multiple things and holding retreats and stuff in the beginning of 2020, where I just wanted to be just me doing things. And I got stuck in this cycle of not knowing what to do. And then 9 months later, I was living in Texas and we had just moved here, and I needed to make like $2,500 a month to start paying my rent and start doing stuff so that I could get out the lifestyle that we actually wanted to create versus what we'd always done. Now here's where this plays in. I started being a VA. What is VA work? Repetitive administrative work every week, hourly work, right? And I started doing hourly administrative work because I didn't see the pattern. I couldn't see and understand that this is the reason I was getting burnt out on things that I was doing. I couldn't see it. So here's the question, right? What are the things that actually burn you out in your business that you need to make sure you're saying no to? Because if you haven't done a lot in your business, you may not actually be sure, but you can look back at jobs and school and like things that you've done, volunteer work, church work, like whatever. You can look at the things that you know are going to like steal your energy or overwhelm you or like take mental energy that you don't have to give, right? And so, and I'll read Tara's comment here in just a second. And so I started doing this work and the same pattern emerged. After about 3 months of doing awesome things and setting up these systems and like hyper focusing on something and making it really great and setting it all up and having all of these brilliant ideas, my execution drops, or I can't keep up with the repetitive work. And so after about 3 more months, I'd had a baby and I'd taken an administrative leave after having my baby. And I realized, like, oh, I can't do this. I cannot do this anymore. And so I realized the need for me in my own business to be working on a project by project basis, even if I go project by project by project with the same client. And so the things that I do not have in my own business are, I do not have retainer clients, which means that they can just call on me randomly to perform tasks for them. I do not have retainer clients. And from yesterday forward, I no longer have like repetitive content creation clients. And so from now moving forward, if anyone asks me for that kind of work, either number one, I have to hire somebody to do that work because they love it and they can fulfill on it. Or I have to outsource it to someone else, like refer them out to someone else, or simply say no. And so how would you actually say no inside of that conversation? Okay. Let's see what Tara said. Okay, I have low earth energy, so I struggle with the mundane daily tasks as well. I'm also a Leo, so I don't like multitasking. And let's be real, multitasking doesn't even exist, right? Like it's not a real thing. It's something we've fooled ourselves into thinking that we can do, when really we're just distracting ourselves from task to task. So when you are early on in your business, the things that are being mentioned here are, hold on, chat. The things that are being mentioned here are, you know, how early on in your business you can compromise to get things rolling. And yeah, and I've done that in my own business. I compromised my own mental health and physical health actually to get things rolling in my business. However, looking back, I can see that there was a path where I didn't have to do that. Even though at the time I needed to do what I did, but it was really the easy way out. It was taking something I knew I could do and doing it for less money than I knew I needed to be paid to do it. And doing it simply because I was afraid of doing it any other way. And so if you're saying no, or if you're saying yes because of your, like I said, the lack mentality, if you're fearful of what's on the other side of, you know, saying no, then really you're actually taking what you don't want and choosing it versus choosing into what you do want and allowing, you know, your higher power, allowing God to actually step in and provide what it is you actually do want. And so there are a million ways to say no to a client, but my favorite ways are, it's this simple. You know, when somebody asks you for something, or when you've decided that something is no longer working for you, some of my favorite phrases are, I'm not willing, I'm not able, right? I'm unable to deliver on, you know, that particular thing. There's so many ways. Let me just think of some of the other ways that I've said it. This no longer works for me, right? Or I have changed my business model, and so I'll be no longer offering these services. Or no, that's not something that I can provide. However, I know somebody else who can. I don't have the bandwidth. You know, that's something to consider too, is the bandwidth. And most people will understand bandwidth, and most people will honor your no. So what do you do when somebody doesn't honor your no? What do you do when you can't honor your own no? Because that is really where you have to start. You have to start by honoring your own no. And that starts with self-reflection. It starts with what I mentioned earlier. What are your values in your business and outside of your business? Are you my values go, you know, God and me and my husband, my kids, you know, like that's the order it goes in. So whatever God tells me to do first, that's my first value, right? If he says do VA work, right? And I did feel inspired to go in that direction. That's what I did. Yes, I had forgotten that administrative work was going to burn me out, but it led me in the right direction. And when it finally was enough that I was like, I cannot do this, I had that next inspiration of what I needed to do next. And so I needed to honor my own no when I started feeling like I can no longer do this. When I noticed it, like I can't do this anymore. And I needed to understand that it was okay that I couldn't do it anymore. So when things get hard in your business and there's things people want you to do for them that you don't want to do, you got to know that it's okay to say no. And you can do it really messy. Like you can just straight up be like, no, I'm not going to do it, right? Or you could be as fancy as writing out an entire email that's like, you know, I am so grateful for the opportunity that you have allowed me in like exploring this option with you. And like, I super respect and am grateful that you want to work with me. And I think that, we could create something totally magical and brilliant. However, right now I do not have the bandwidth to take on this project. And so I'm going to recommend that you talk to this person because I know that they have openings in their business, right? There's so many ways. But I want to invite you that the next time you need to say no to someone, before you do it, you can straight up message me and ask me how I would say it. Because that is where you're going to find the most value, is inside of the actual conversation that you have with people saying no. Because most of the time what people need when you say no is they, number one, need to understand why you're saying no without you actually explaining it. Like, saying no is a complete sentence. But most of the time people are gonna be like, well, why? Right. So if you can come up with a small reason, right, that I don't have bandwidth, or, I just have too much of the work that I'm doing, whatever, something super simple. It doesn't have to be, I really suck at administrative work and I can't do the repetitive tasks. And so I know that if I take on this project, it's going to be totally overwhelming. And I want you to love me as a friend. And I know if I take this project on, it's not going to go well and it's going to suck. Right. It can literally just be, no, I'm sorry, I can't do the repetitive tasks. I've literally said this to people. No, I can't take on any repetitive work like that. But if you have anything that's like project based, I'd love to explore that with you. And, that is something. What about people messaging every once in a while to try to get free information? So it's going to depend on your business model, right? This call is free information. I give away free information in my messenger all the time. And so it's going to be circumstantial for you. If you have a personality where you don't like to just sit and talk to people, maybe you need a business model where you have a way to give people the information that they're looking for, and then an opportunity for them to work with you further going forward. So for me, people do ask me questions about branding and marketing literally all the time, right? Because I welcome it and I invite people to do it. I share information freely, on social media. And when you're a business owner who shares information, you're going to end up with messages from people asking you questions. And so what I normally do is, depending on the question, is I can say things like, wow, well, that's a really loaded question. Here's the simplest answer I can possibly give you, and spend like 90 seconds just answering their question in a voice message, and then inviting them to like dive deeper with me if they need to. Like, hey, but if you really need to dive deeper into this, like, you could book a 30-minute call with me. You can do it for $50 if that works for you. And they can say yes, or they can say no. The easiest way to say no to people who are looking for information for you is to actually just design a process or a system in your business in order to say no to them without you saying no to them. Right? Someone wants a call with me, I send them my calendar link. If they're not willing to use my calendar link, I'm not willing to have a conversation with them. If like my logo processes take 4 to 6 weeks right now, if they're not willing to wait 4 to 6 weeks, then they don't get to create a logo with me. Like, that's just kind of how it goes, because I've used those systems and processes to actually weed out people who are not my ideal person. Tara says, I definitely want to create free content, but not in the matter where it takes me out of the zone. And so one simple way to do that is, number one, to do a concentrated thing where like this is a concentrated way for me to spend an hour every week giving the people who are willing to show up live the most value I possibly can in a short period of time. All right. And it does take, I can literally sit here and talk for hours and hours. I can let you ask questions. I can give you example after example after example, but I try to do it in this condensed way so that you can actually get like questions answered really quickly. Another way to do free content, that doesn't take you out of the zone, is creating like freebie things or really low cost things. If someone asks you a question, if you get a question that someone asks you over and over and over and over again, create a video about that question, post it on your website or have it on YouTube, or create a PDF about it. So when someone else asks you that question, you say, hey, you know what? I created something about that. Here, you can download this 2-page PDF and it'll actually just answer that question for you. And that way you've created this thing one time because you know that you get that question repetitively. And then you don't have to put that same effort in every single time that you get asked that question again. You just created a free resource for the next person that asks that question. And then they're on your email list. Then they're engaging in your social media. And they're actually starting to engage in your business without you actually putting that one-to-one effort into every single person. Okay, let's see what else here. So what are some reasons why it would be hard to say no? Because you need the money. That's one reason why people find it hard to say no. Another reason why people would find it hard to say no is like lack of confidence or traumatic experiences that have taught them it's not okay or not safe to say no to somebody. And that I cannot coach you through what, dealing with the trauma around that. People pleasing is either a personality or a trauma response most of the time. And if it's a personality trait, all you need to do is learn the system of saying no, right? If it's a trauma response, all you need to do is learn the system of saying no. And this is where canned responses, right? Written out responses to something or templates can make your life so much easier. Or a community where you're like, how do I say no to this question? Where we have a community, like that on social media, with whatever I named my Facebook group. Where you could actually just ask that question. Hey, someone asked me this question. How can I say no to it? Or how can I have this response? Or what should I do about this? And that's what that community is for. Like if you literally have stuff like that coming up in your business, post in there. It's a safe space where I can actually just answer your question. And then everyone else gets value from it also. But saying no, honestly, is just an opportunity for you to redirect people, set boundaries, and actually just teach the people of the world how you want to be treated and what you offer. If I ask Walmart for a massage, they're going to tell me no, because they literally just don't provide that product. So you have to start separating yourself from your business services. Okay, if I call a law firm and ask them for a massage, they're going to say no. They're not, they're not massage therapists, they're lawyers. And so knowing exactly what you offer is the first thing. It's the first step, knowing what you offer, and then knowing all your values outside of your business that you need to uphold, like the work hours and stuff like that. And then just having a response ready and have a willingness to tell people no matter how scary it is. And so, are there any questions? Any other questions?
I thought I had a question. Where did it go? Oh, that was the question. How do you know that it really is a no?
Like, how do you know when your yes is a yes? Because if it's not a yes, then it's a no. And so understanding yourself and your body and your emotions and how you react to things that you do want to do, you can start to notice the things that are really a no. And there's always going to be some space in the middle that's kind of neutral, where there's sometimes you just get to choose, sometimes it's a hard pass, and sometimes it's a heck yes, right? And so in the middle, in the neutral, is where you really want to lean on the values, the bandwidth, the what do I want to be doing? Do I need this? Do I not need this? And you can lean into those questions and your intuition in the spaces in between. Because I feel like when it's like definitely a hard pass, it's really clear when it's a hard pass. And it's a really clear when it's a heck yes. And the space in between, I think, is where most people struggle. And so that's where those questions have to come in. Yeah.
I like that. I feel like I always procrastinate when I don't know what the obvious answer is. It's not like a yes or like a no. I just procrastinate it. I just never decide.
Yeah, and waiting, right? Like waiting on the decision, I would say generally points to a no. If you find you'll notice those patterns for yourself, and everyone on this call or anyone who ever watches this video is going to have their own patterns that they recognize are a yes or a no. Yes, there's a legitimate if you're actually a procrastinator, right? That habit of procrastination, but it's different when it's an emotional oh, I just don't want to, I just don't want to, I just don't want to, like, I don't want to is literally like, no, I don't want to, right? Like, it's literally a no. Whereas more like the, like, oh, I really need to get to that. Oh, I really need to get to that is like an energy of trying to say yes, but you're not in the space of saying yes, right? Like, you're just literally not putting yourself in the conversation, which is the space of saying yes or no. And so there's just that you can just tell that different energy between like, well, I really don't want to respond because like, I don't know what to respond, because it means you want to say no and you're not, or you need to say, or you need to like negotiate, right? Because you're a no to this, but maybe this is a possibility. Whereas the yes, but I need to just get to having that conversation is like a yes, but I just need to tell them it's a yes, you know, and like, so the energy is very different in those two spaces. And you can start to recognize that like as you experience things. Yeah. Oh, Tara said, yeah, if it's not a heck yes, it's a no. And I've heard that a lot. Like, that's definitely a conversation people are having, you know, it has to be a heck yes or a no. But there are going to be times where the maybe, you know, needs to be a yes, you know, for your own life. Like, okay, sure, I can do that. Sure, I'll update your resume. Sure, I'll do this, right? And while they might not be a heck yes, sometimes those like, oh yeah, that's fine, I can do that, are still valuable to you. And like I said, that's where you just get to choose. Yeah. Okay, guys, so thank you for showing up. These calls will still happen every week. Sometimes there'll be an official training, you know, with the slideshow and all the things, and sometimes it'll be a conversation like this. So I appreciate you all being here today. I think everyone on this call is already on the EBLA waitlist, but if you're not on so from this week forward, this will be the link moving forward. So I apologize for putting the wrong link out there this week, but this is the same link. It's going to be every single week so that we can get the recording and not be limited to 40 minutes. But I think you guys are all in the waitlist already. If you're not already on the Embodied Business and Leadership Academy waitlist, you can join that at waitlist.taylorddouglas.com or comment on this video wherever you're seeing it. The link we'll post it below. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Register at workshop.taylorddouglas.com to get the weekly email reminders and the link so that they're easily and readily available for you, or add it to your calendar. All right, guys, have a great week and we'll talk to you soon.